Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Space for Life. This is going to be a really special episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, the conversation that we're going to have, and I think also very meaningful. So I have as my special guest today, AC Arendale, and
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you. This has been fun. We've actually been talking about this for about a year.
Yes.
Now.
Mm-hmm.
So a little background. Weezy and I are very good friends with AC's parents, John and Meredith. Shout out to them.
Shout out.
So in our friendship, we've gotten to know AC now over many years and seen her grow up. And AC is now, you are officially the youngest podcast guest that I've had on Space for Life. So I've just admired so much how you've lived your life, some of the things you've given yourself to. And that's just why I wanted to have you on this podcast. Primarily is because I think the way you are living your life, whether it's at this age or at any age, is something for so many people to learn from. But then I think also it has this nuance of you're choosing to do this, amidst all of the opportunities and glamour and glitz of college life and things like that. So anyway, I just want to have a kind of a fun conversation, both about, what you're doing, some of the things you're giving your time to and your energy to and your passion to, and then perhaps we'll pivot on the back end of it to a conversation about the differences in generations. There's one or two generations difference between you and I. And I think that will be a really interesting conversation because I think we all have a lot to learn about how to more effectively, non-judgmentally cross generations to learn from one another.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my hope for things. So AC is a rising sophomore at Baylor University, and getting ready to go back just in about another week or so to school. And she's involved in so many different things. I'm going to let her tell you, but welcome, AC, to Space for Life.
Thank you so much. Exciting to be here. It's my first real podcast. And yeah, I'm really excited to get back to Baylor. Just absolutely loved my first year there, and I think the Lord really led me to that place. I'm really grateful for the community He gave me. And you want me to kind of start with how I got my first trip to Niger, kind of, or
well, I tell you what, let's back up. Well, a couple things in general. Have you figured out major or anything that you're kind of focusing on at Baylor?
I'm currently majoring, so it's called University Scholar, which kind of lets me do a couple of different things. You choose 2 to 4 concentrations, and mine currently are special education and then psychology.
Oh, wow.
I had neuroscience in there, but it's super cool, but I don't want to be a neurosurgeon, so ended up not needing to keep that one. So special ed and psych right now. And I've just loved it. It kind of has given me freedom to take different classes within both of those, which has been really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool because certainly it seems like most of the time college education, the major is so overwhelming that you hardly have a chance to dip into anything else.
Yes, and I'm a very indecisive person, so it's been nice to have that freedom to kind of take what classes I'm most passionate about and things like that.
Yeah, I don't know. You strike me as pretty decisive, but we can get into that.
There's a lot of indecision that comes before big decisions for me, definitely.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that I've witnessed kind of from a distance that you are really passionate about, that you've kind of given an unusual amount of yourself to, that I'd love for you to share. One is kind of your particular now kind of long-term love for those with special needs. And then a little bit more recently, your involvement in Niger and time that you just had this summer. So pick either of those and share some of that.
I can start with special needs ministry, I guess. I kind of started in high school volunteering with Hope Church in the sensory room junior year. I just knew I wanted to get involved somehow, and my heart kind of felt pulled towards that ministry. Don't even exactly know what that first seed was. I just wanted to go out and see if that was somewhere I might want to serve, longer term. And so I started there junior year. Gabby Osborne leads it. She's awesome. Got me trained, and then it's just an amazing ministry. And a lot of churches don't have, a kids room for kids with disabilities while their parents are at church.
You called it a sensory room?
Yes, that's what they call it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really neat.
Room.
Yeah.
Just, because we'll take the kids to go with the other kids in the regular kids service and group. And then if it becomes too much or something like that, we take them back to the room. It just kind of provides a safe space for them, but we also, want them to get the full experience and be with everyone to their extent that they're comfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of special needs are involved in that ministry? What kind of kids are you dealing with?
I mean, I'd say it's a wide range. I wouldn't say I always know what, kids have autism or Down syndrome or a variety of things. And there's, cute little 2-year-old girl. And then there's, as they get older and eventually then they transition to the middle school, where we have buddies that will go with them to youth group and stuff like that. And then it goes all the way to the adult special needs ministry.
That's amazing.
Really cool, which is really cool.
That is really cool. How many people roughly are in that special needs ministry?
Like the actual kids that come?
Yeah, the kids that come.
I would say, on an average morning, we'll have, 10 kids in there for one service, and then a new group will come. So, they have, I think, probably anywhere from 30 to 40 kids overall in their system.
That's really amazing.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can't really think of the first seed, but there was just something that just said, I want to try this, and you did?
I just felt like my heart felt pulled to that, and then I loved it. It was just a really awesome thing outside of school and everything that I just got to spend time with the Lord with these kids, which was really just restful time, honestly, and kept doing that into senior year. And then I also, alongside this, volunteered some with Capernaum, which is basically Young Life for teenagers with special needs. And honestly, that is so much fun. So
you really jumped in on multiple fronts with this.
I tried to. I definitely got busy with school sometimes, and collegiate keeps you busy.
Yeah.
And all the things, but I really loved it. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, that's amazing. Well, one of the things I love kind of almost about the way you verbalize this that I think is worth all of us hearing is that you said, I don't really know exactly. There wasn't really one particular say. My heart was drawn to things. And I think sometimes so many people, and I think I can be prone to this myself, feel like I need to have like this real clarity before I try something. And I want to make sure I got it right. Have I listened to God correctly? Am I sure? Have I weighed all of the pros and cons? Yes. But you just knew you wanted to serve and you felt your heart drawn, not even like this call from God. You felt your heart drawn and you just tried it. And I think that is, for a lot of people, that's probably a good way of operating is, if you feel your heart drawn to something, try it. But, with the craziness of high school, and I know you went to collegiate, and it's very demanding. That's a lot to kind of add in.
It was honestly, it was a nice, Capernaum is just so much fun. Not everyone knows what it is, or some people do. It's just, you just play games, and we would always end, we'd do like club on Tuesday nights. and you end with everyone gets to do a karaoke. It's just fun, honestly. So
Yeah.
it's really light, just a deep joy there and lighthearted.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said about, like people feel like I sometimes feel like I need to have this clear direction of where I should go and like answer drop out of the sky for what God wants me to do. And that's just not always how God works. And I think sometimes I get overwhelmed when people maybe ask me why special needs ministry, because honestly, I don't have a huge, profound like moment where I just knew this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm kind of just trying to, I guess, follow where God's leading me kind of blindly sometimes. Don't really know where I'm going.
Yeah.
But I've just seen him be really faithful and come through again and again. And, if I end up 316 and doing something completely different, that could also happen because you just never know. But
well, I think that's so good. I think I've said it before on this podcast, but one of these little aha moments for me was when I was looking at the Great Commission in Matthew, and it says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." And I realized, because I'm kind of geek out on some of this stuff, that in the Greek, the word go is actually a participle, meaning that the most accurate translation is as you are going. As you are going, make disciples. And I think about that. That's exactly, it's just like, well, I'm just going and God just is faithful in the midst of it. And if I do a 360, who cares? I did a 360 or whatever. I guess it would be 180.
Yes.
So, I think it's a great, there's a freedom to that. Just as you're going, just go with God and you've done that. The other thing that I love what you're saying, and I've seen this because I think I heard you, a recording of your senior speech from collegiate, and you think about this special needs ministry that you've been involved with. And I think that so many people's impression of that would be, well, that would be so hard and that would be so sad and what a sacrifice, and you're serving. Every time I've heard you talk about it, I've heard you just talk about it is so much fun and it just brings me so much joy.
So this is great. This is something I was going to talk about at some point. I just feel like the special needs ministry and other things, sometimes the world, like you said, will think that that's a really hard, sad place. And that's not to dismiss that there are a lot of hard things that come with having different abilities and different challenges, and not to dismiss that at all. But I think there's also a lot of gifts and things that people miss out on. I read this poem once. It's called Welcome to Holland. And it's basically talking about how when a family is like having a baby and it's just like going on a trip to Italy. And then the flight attendant tells them they landed in Holland instead of Italy. And they're all disappointed because they wanted to, be at this destination. This is where they thought they were going, but they landed here instead. Just like if maybe a family is having a kid and then say they have a child with Down syndrome or something. And, doctors will come out and say, we have bad news, and already start it as this negative thing. And not to say it's not going to be challenging and a different road, and you have to come to terms with the fact that now you're in a totally different place. But if you do realize this different place has other amazing things, it's just different, I think there is a lot of life in that. Yeah.
No, that's so good. And you're right. I think there is kind of this implied negativity to special needs. And, I think what you're seeing, because you were willing to step into that place, is kind of what maybe unique joys and experiences there are in that. So I think that's really cool. And it even goes to a couple other places that I think are really worth talking about. One is you then not pivoted, but you took a next step from these special needs. You continue to do that, to then go to Niger, Africa. Some nuances to that, because your first trip to Niger, Africa, you had to pass, if I'm correct, on your final senior year spring trip.
Yes, I did. That is kind of how that worked out. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. So you then pivoted or kind of took this step into another really, really hard, sad place.
But not at all, actually.
But not at all. I mean, isn't that, it's amazing.
There's both, because I mean, it is, a fourth world nation is a really hard, and there's so much hard there that we can't even understand. Like I've never lived that, and I am humble before realizing that I can't fully understand what that would be like, but also in being there and getting to spend time with some of the kids and things, there is so much joy and so much to be learned from different culture and a different community as well.
Okay, so let's step back for just a minute, and then I want to get into the Niger. I feel like we only touched on the special needs, but gosh, how powerful that is for us who can so easily frame serving as sacrificial and hard, as opposed to the joy that you talk about. But going to the Niger thing, so I know I talked with your parents about the Niger opportunity, and Michael Thaler did, who's been a guest on Space for Life also. But at some point, the dates kind of came down, and it was both good news, bad news. One was that there was a trip happening right during your spring break.
Well, the actual big senior trip actually happened after school ended. But It was kind of a choice between, going on a normal spring break, and some people were going together to different places or doing this. But on the flip side, I was thinking, well, this was perfect how these dates lined up. And I'd been kind of hoping to go on a mission trip for a while. My dad and my sister and I were supposed to go to Malawi in my freshman year, like summer after my freshman year of high school, and COVID hit. So that completely did not happen. And as COVID changed kind of everything and changed everyone's plans.
Yeah.
So then I'd been kind of waiting for another opportunity. And we first heard about Niger from you guys, from you and Weezy. And I mean, my parents were super excited. I know they met with you guys.
Yeah.
For several conversations. And then, I mean, Michael Thaler's probably one of the most convincing people to go to Niger.
He's a little persuasive.
He's very persuasive. So it was kind of, seems like this is what we should do. Like, this just needs to be a yes and see what happens. And I mean, it was low commitment. It was a week trip, 5 days on the ground. That's,
but it was a big sacrifice in terms of the fun that you were having to turn down. It was low commitment, but you were missing out on kind of your once in a lifetime senior spring trip. I mean, even if it wasn't kind of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
So was that hard decision for you?
I think a lot has happened since then, so I'm trying to remember exactly what was going through my head. I think it was a hard decision just because, I mean, going to Africa is scary in and of itself, but it was also something I knew, when is an opportunity just going to present itself like this? And, we have people who've been to back it up and talk about it, and it's a really awesome organization. So
right.
at the end of the day, it seems like this was something just coming from God that we should see where it takes us.
Right. So you and your dad went to Niger. I guess that was last year, 2023.
Yes, last March.
Right, for the 5 days, and that was a general experience. So tell me about that, and then you then made a subsequent decision to do an internship there this summer.
Yes.
So tell me about
yes.
What Niger was like.
Well, everyone told me, going was going to absolutely rock my world. And I didn't want there to be any pressure on like what I'm supposed to experience. I just kind of wanted to go in very open to what the Lord had for me. And then, true to what people said, it absolutely, rocked my world. I think you can't really, everyone kind of knows that there's a level of poverty in certain places in Africa, definitely not all of it, but certain places, there's this deep level of poverty that will be mentioned, and I mean, people are aware, but to actually be in it and experience it is something completely different. And just have it be all around you and just be immersed in that culture. And I mean, we did a lot in that trip. They really, really packed it in. We went to several of the different orphanages that Link partners with.
Right.
Feeding programs went all the way out into the bush to Danshandu, do the feeding program out there. We even went to the prison there, which was a crazy experience. Several daycares. I mean, this was all in 5 days, which was crazy.
The feeding program just killed me.
Mm-hmm.
That was, for me, that was the hardest experience. It was all so meaningful because Weezy and I did an earlier version of the same trip, so probably almost the same itinerary as what you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the different experiences. And for me, I'm curious if it was the same. It was this real mixture of joy and just amazement at the lives and these different ministries and the powerful things that were going on in the country, and just this kind of gut-wrenching reality of the lives that millions are living of. It was just like, I felt like torn, in opposite directions.
And I think that's really probably the best way of putting it, better than I could put it. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, and I think there's a lot to be learned from over there too. And I felt very humble before many of the ministry leaders of the different ministries. They would kind of share their story with us before we would share with them or meet some of the kids or whatever we had planned for the day. They would share their story and how the organization came to be. I'm sure on your trip too, which is a big part of it, because this partnership between us and them, it's not one way, it's a two-way thing where we have so much to be learned from them too. And that first trip, a big theme for me was really learning from stories. I mean, we heard so many incredible stories of people just following God's call in their life and really being living sacrifices as we're called to be. And just the joy that they had, it was incredible to witness.
Which goes right back to the first part, these living sacrifices that these people made to serve, and then the joy, and those are things that we just don't tend to put together. Is this sacrifice and serving and joy, and I would venture to say, I'm curious if you would agree that where that's most particularly true is when people are kind of living into their passions and their gifts. I don't know that necessarily anybody who went into a special needs ministry would experience the kind of joy that you did, or necessarily in Niger. But when people find a place that they're meant to be, that they're called to be, that's when that sacrifice and joy go hand in hand.
Right. I think that's a good point. I would say it is really cool to see how we're all made so uniquely. We have different passions and strong suits, just like certain ministries or jobs and things I know would just not, just like I said, I do not be a neurosurgeon, things like that. And then some people that's calling for their life. And it's cool because you need people to be there's so many different areas of need. So that's a really good point.
So when you came back from that first trip to Niger, what stuck in your mind? Because it's one thing And it's an amazing thing to go and choose to do that because, you had to raise the money to do that, and you and your dad went. So that all is amazing in and of itself. But for many people, it kind of stops there, and it didn't for you.
Yes, I came back and I loved my time there. I knew I wanted to go back to Africa. So I don't know if I've mentioned this part of it, but I met with my small group leader from 7th grade. Now we're good friends. Her name's Ansley. She's several years older than me. We met to talk about my trip, and then she was going to Zambia with Africa Freedom Mission that summer. And she was like, you should come with me. You say you want to go back to Africa, and you should come with me. There's a few spots open. And if anyone can get my parents on board to go back, it was her. They trust her a lot, and she's awesome. And so then suddenly I was getting to go back to Africa, but went back to Zambia in July last summer, and completely different than what we were doing in Niger. This was more street evangelism, and also it was all college-age kids for 2 weeks. We were there. Really intense discipleship as well. Mm-hmm. And that community was different than my team I first went on. I was the youngest, and there was a mix of adults and couples and things like that. So it was really also a really critical experience because I just learned so much from being discipled in that way.
Yes.
And it was really cool to get to go back so soon and see a totally different part of the continent.
That's amazing. So 2023 spring break, you go to Niger. Mm-hmm. Summer, you go to Zambia.
Yes.
And then you're now looking at your first summer after freshman year, and you decide to go back to Niger.
Yes. So that decision was really hard and a long journey, actually, because I didn't know. I loved my time in Zambia and I loved my time in Niger. And after my first trip to Niger, Michael Thaler had mentioned the internship, and again, he's very persuasive. And he said it would be open discussion, like if I had any interest in that for next summer. And he kind of brought it up during the fall of my freshman year of college. And then it kind of got to winter, and I was trying to really decide what I wanted to do with my summer. If I wanted to go back to Zambia, because I did love my time there, and that people go for longer. 2 weeks is kind of the minimum time frame over there.
Right.
And so I was kind of thinking, am I going to go back to Zambia or am I going to go back to Niger? And for a while, I really thought I was going to go back to Zambia. But then as I really considered the differences in the ministries, because they are very, very different. I mean, one's street evangelism in villages, which is awesome, but was really hard for me and way out of my comfort zone, but learned a lot through it. And then the other one, is all these different ministry partners and a lot of kids ministry, honestly. And, I met with the different people, and one person had told me, it's okay if you have different gifts and talents. You don't have to be, street evangelism doesn't have to be your strength or one or the other. You could be more pulled to different ministry, and that's okay. And that's when I kind of started to realize I felt more pulled to the ministry in Niger, and that this internship was daunting, and I didn't really know what all it was going to entail. But I started really thinking about that and praying about that. And it was honestly a long journey because I was kind of also considering just working at a summer camp like Kanakuk or something, because a lot of people from Baylor do that. And it's awesome and great community, and you're still pouring into kids, not leaving the country. It's great in a lot of ways. So I kind of would flip back and forth between what I was going to do, especially as some conditions in Niger, some people were concerned about safety. That became a concern. But the thought of giving up being in Africa in the summer I just felt like grieved and sad at the thought of that, and really just wanted to go back. Couldn't even explain why. But I was still struggling because, I wanted God to just give me this answer right in front of me. But,
Yes.
God's not like a genie in a bottle where he just gives you the answer. And I think something I really learned my freshman year and with various decisions, not just this summer, was that sometimes two decisions are both good decisions and both paths can be awesome. It just, as long as you're bringing the Lord into it.
Yes.
I think working at a summer camp could have been equally amazing as long as, I was walking with the Lord into it. And you can totally go to Africa with the wrong heart posture as well. So I think that heart behind it and walking with God into it is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And so when I did consider the two, and I, for a second there, was like, okay, maybe I'm just going to work at camp and not go to Africa. I felt really sad and just did not feel right in my heart. So many conversations, much deciding. Then I was like, okay, I want to go back to Africa and see how this internship, see what this could look like. And it was hard because we had to find, it was very open-ended, needed to find other people to go with me. And
yeah, they were creating this internship.
Yes.
It never existed before.
I mean, they've done it before, but it's always
Okay.
been smaller, which was something that was a concern for me at first because,
Sure.
Last time I was surrounded by 30 to 40 people my age, the leaders poured into me, and then I was going to go do an internship with however many people I could find. It was going to be smaller, though. And ended up just going with my good friend Reagan. It's kind of how it worked out. Crazy. We did Young Life work crew together summer before my senior year. We've stayed really close since then. And I kind of texted her and was like, would you ever have any interest in going to Africa? Let me know. And she immediately was like, yes, I want to hear about this. And called me later that day. And she was super excited about it. She had been wanting to go to Africa on some mission trip, but it's kind of hard to find an organization that, someone's already been to and is backed up. And
Right, yeah.
That someone's been and they can vouch for it rather than just something random. So, she prayed about it crazily. She was convinced her dad and everything because, going all the way to Africa.
Yes.
First time, second time, third time, whatever, it's a big commitment. So then it ended up being us two. And we got to kind of plan out our schedule and what we were going to focus on while we were there. And definitely, once we decided, there was still, fear of, should we really be going? Are we going to be safe? All the things. But we just kept trusting God with it. I remember I even asked the Lord, if we're not meant to be there, don't let our plane take off. And our plane took off. So yeah, it was that was a lot. It's kind of a long process.
Yeah. And I love that because that's real life, and you said at the beginning, you're not really decisive, but it seems to me more that you're carefully discerning because you made in each one of these places difficult decisions, often the most difficult, the harder decision of the options. You didn't take per se the easy way out, not as you say that would have been wrong, but you made very discerning decisions. And even in those decisions, it wasn't like you were just then overwhelmed with this sense of peace and confidence and joy. It was still, I still don't know whether I made the right decision. And that's real life, and we want to, I think, sugarcoat or put a nice little package around all of these God things in our life and make them seem like, well, when you're following God, everything will work out fine and you'll have all of these signs and have all of this confidence. But it doesn't always work out that way.
No, I don't. I think I'm a big overthinker, and I definitely wanted God to just kind of tell me which way to go because I did want to discern and go where He wanted me to be. But I think I got a little too fixated on it, and then it was really grew and learned that there can be multiple right paths.
Yes,
and it's just walking with the Lord. Sometimes there is one way He's going to lead you.
Sure.
But I think trusting in Him, and He's going to be faithful to you.
That's got to be really helpful for you moving forward. Everything from decisions about what major to do to, what you're going to do next summer or beyond, to know that this is kind of how God works. You very imperfectly navigate, opportunities and things, and sometimes without a whole lot of assurance, just do the best you can to follow your heart, and know God will go with you.
Yes.
That's boy, a lot of older people than yourself really that's an important life lesson.
And definitely still relearning it every day.
Sure.
I think it's,
yeah.
You don't always learn things once. You have to continually be reminded of that.
So what was it was a 3-week internship, right?
Yes. It was actually originally designed to be 6 weeks. So again, it was just, we wanted it to be a little bit shorter just because, coming home from college, Reagan's about to go to college. She's a grade below me. Just wanting to at least have some home time and be with my family as well, since I don't see them much throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And Michael's awesome. He's very flexible, and he was patient with, we definitely were more last minute.
Yeah.
This probably shouldn't be that last minute again of planning an internship, but it was really cool to see how it turned out.
Well, they have an amazing staff of people over in Niger that kind of allows you to just plant yourself there, and they can adapt and make things safe. In a place that it's got a lot going on there now.
I felt very safe over there. I never really, people have asked me the favorite question: did you ever feel unsafe over there? And honestly, no. Sometimes, we'd be in the van with Vincent, our translator, and Muhammad, our driver, and in the middle of a village, and I would have a reality check of, this is crazy, but I still never felt unsafe.
Sure.
And I just the staff over there is incredible, and really, there's so much trust in them, and without them, it could never work.
Yeah, and we'll put some information about Effective Ministries, which is the organization that has all of this going on in Niger. We'll put it in the show notes, because it's an amazing, incredibly buttoned up organization that is having an incredible impact throughout all of Niger, in feeding programs and education, which Weezy and I have kind of been particularly tied into, orphanages. You dealt with special needs there, all micro businesses.
Awesome.
It's an incredible ministry for anybody who is interested in either getting involved or just contributing to a place that's, going to get a lot done for the dollar. So we'll put some things in the show notes for that. So any kind of like big takeaways from the summer internship?
It was incredible. Again, learned so much. I think going to Niger, it's a two-way flow of, we're coming there to be with them and spend time with them, but also bringing back a lot that we learned from their culture, and just how, at least within like the orphanages, daycares that we spend a lot of time in, just how kids love each other, and just there's so much to be learned, especially from like the leaders of these ministries who have just given up everything for these kids. So we spent a lot of our time at 2 orphanages, Remar and Good Samaritan, and then the New Life Center, which is a daycare for kids with disabilities, which the other 2 I got to see my first time there. Right. But the New Life Center, we just did not have enough time for. So I've kind of been waiting to get to experience and see what this ministry was going to look like. And I was really, really interested to see what, special needs ministry would look like in a fourth world country. And just how, because I know there's a whole lack of education regarding disabilities and special needs over there, which is really sad. A lot of communities will treat these people, whether they, might have Down syndrome or even just they're totally cognitively all good. It just might be that they were born with some physical impairment, or can't walk, or like missing a hand, something like that. And they'll literally view them as if they're cursed or dirty, don't want their kids to be around them. And there's just such discrimination and stigma that's just heartbreaking. So the New Life Center completely transforms these kids' lives. This woman, her name's Hadiza, probably one of the most incredible people I've ever met. She started this center just at her house, actually, just taking in kids with disabilities. They come, from the morning to the afternoon. She feeds them as much as they want, honestly. She takes really good care of them, and she does school with them, and they do fun activities as well, and she teaches them about the Bible and different Bible stories. And I mean, they know their stuff. They came and they were singing songs for us and reciting Bible verses, which is incredible to see. And they may not have all the technology and research that we have over here, but she really has the love that she's poured into these kids. It really, really showed me that the main thing that matters in this ministry is just loving these kids and showing them the value that they do have. And that's why she calls it the New Life Center, because she gives them, new life, a second chance that they wouldn't normally have. And I mean, these kids love the center. I mean, she was telling us how some of them will tell her they like her better than their own parents. And, she opens the doors at 9 a.m., supposed to close at 4. But kids will show up at 7, and they won't leave till dinner time, and she just lets them come, because now she has a whole center right next to her house. That's her whole life that she gave up to do this, and just a true living sacrifice. Yeah. And when she first felt the Lord pulling her in this direction, she shared with us that she was like, "No, God, you can't possibly mean me." But then she continued to follow what he wanted for her, and she's not done yet. She wants to expand and create, a sewing school and school for the deaf, and she just wants to keep growing. It's really cool to see. It's amazing. It was particularly, I guess, notable. We have so much here in the U.S. In terms of just wealth and opportunity and everything. When you go to Niger, the overall is there isn't wealth, there isn't opportunity. And I think it makes these places like New Life and Remar, these places stand out all that much more. Their light is so much brighter because often so much around them is so dark. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they've also, chosen to place their faith in the Lord. And over there, one of the staff or someone explained it to me that, in the U.S. we have a lot more options. And over there, when someone is choosing to follow the Lord, that is their option. That's who they're going to first for everything. Health, all the things that, it's great. Having an amazing health system over here is wonderful, but sometimes we forget to be reliant on the Lord with a lot of things. Whereas over there, they have to rely on him because that's who they have in a lot of these things. Yeah. That's for Hadiza's ministry. She didn't have the funds or the money to create this amazing center and take care of these kids that the Lord, provided for her, because she's trusted him and prayed for him and continues to trust that, her visions for the future, he's going to provide. Yeah. Gosh, it's so incredible. I can't wait to hear what some of your next paths are going to be. But it's just, it's really encouraging to just hear how you're trying imperfecely to just follow the Lord the best you can. Definitely imperfectly. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to pivot for at least a little bit of this conversation. I had this feeling that one of the things that we don't do well in our culture is cross generations. There's kind of these little fixed lines of age groups and seasons of life that almost operate like cliques. And what we tend to do in these age cliques is judge those who are outside of our age clique. We either judge people who are older than us, they are over the hill,
they can't think well, you're not doing anything with this season of life, or the younger people are just, they're all messed up or whatever. And we've got a couple generations between us. But I would just love just to hear your honest thoughts, good, bad, ugly, about, how you see your generation. Gen Z, I think, is where you fall in the middle of. And it's probably easiest, as it would be for me with my generation, in a sense, to judge it. But I'm really also as interested, if not more, in what you see positively going. So what are just some thoughts that you think about your generation and what people maybe either misinterpret or don't understand?
Yeah, totally. Not to start with the negative or the weakness, but I do think my generation, with social media and everything, which everyone is aware of, I just think we're so distracted. And because of social media, I wouldn't even say it's always our fault or we want it to be this way, but social media has become so addicting and just distracts us. I mean, our attention span is been destroyed. I mean, I don't know the research, but I do know that they've done the research that shows, it's scary how our attention span has been reduced. And actually, one of my professors for my disabilities class this year, challenged us to sit for 5-10 minutes by ourselves without anything, just like sit in silence and see, how that went for us. Because we just don't do that. It's so hard now for us just to sit still, and it's not even like we want it to be that way. It's just we're so used to constantly on the move and constantly there's so much coming at us from social media. It's kind of crazy when you actually sit down and think about it. And it's exhausting. I definitely think there's an energy in my culture as well that's really positive, but sometimes it gets distorted and hijacked with social media, becoming, competitive and having to always keep up with each other. It just leaves us feeling, empty and exhausted. But I mean, I do it too. I'm not sure. I fall into this as well. And I think people don't really know how to stop it, because it is an addiction, to scrolling. And it sounds, people talk about these things, and I think it's really a danger.
I use an analogy. It's like a riptide. You're in it, and I mean, how do you get out of that riptide? I actually like the word you use, hijack, too, because you think about, you get on a plane, and this plane has all of this energy, and to go to a place that, let's just say, is a very beautiful place, but the plane gets hijacked, and so all of that energy is diverted elsewhere. It's actually a great little kind of image of, I think, what is happening. We have X units of energy, and it's where is it going to go? And for, as you're describing, your generation, but I think it goes way beyond your generation, our best energy is getting hijacked into something that isn't even neutral. It's, I should qualify that. I think there's a lot of incredibly powerful, good things in social media. There's some connections that happen through it.
Oh, yes,
I think
definitely.
It gets demonized, and it's like if we demonize it enough, then we can just feel good about feeling bad about it. And I think it's much more nuanced than that. But still, our inability to navigate it in a healthy way.
Yes, I think we're lacking the tools and how to navigate it in a healthy way. I mean, I am always wanting to be better about it and get frustrated with myself. When I get distracted or whatever it may be, or can feel myself something like comparing to other people's lives, which, I mean, we all do it if we're looking at those things, especially like girls my age, our generation. I think There's definitely this like presentation of your life. It's a big thing to do, day in the lives and all this stuff, which doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, it's so much. It's fun, and it's
Right.
it's fun to do these things. But then I think it can just leave people start comparing and feeling exhausted by having to always keep up and always. If you're seeing everyone else's lives all the time, you start to forget to live in your own present moment.
Yeah, it really, I think you're bringing this up as much as I've talked about this at various points, because I feel really strongly about this too. It makes me think it would be a good podcast series to get, a few people to talk, maybe in more depth and nuance with very specific practicalities about how do we begin to wrangle this tiger in a sense, because at least by my observance, and I agree with you in terms of what you're talking about with your generation, but I'm seeing it almost across all generations. And I think with some older people, I think we operate with an illusion that we're handling it better. Whereas what you're talking about is we know we got a problem with this, but I see a lot of people that are just addicted in a sense, like what you're saying, but they think it's under control. I don't know.
I think it's like it's a hidden pull on us. At least I can feel like the pull to check my phone, or that pull of, you get serotonin when you get whatever it is. It sounds dumb, but likes and comments and all that type of stuff. It is true, and it's like a reward system. And I think we are aware of it, but then we don't really know how to fix it. And I think there are a lot of positive things. Like you said, so many businesses, and there's so much creativity and inspiration that does come from it, and that can lift you up. But then it can start to become too much. We don't know how to navigate it.
Yeah. So what are some of the positive things that you see kind of coming out, or in your generation, that are either just in your network of people or you think are generational traits?
I think, I kind of mentioned it, that there is a lot of energy and creative and passionate people, which there has been, history repeats itself, and there has been in every generation, but I think there is an energy, and I know I'm not as knowledgeable on this, but there have been revivals at different college campuses and things like that. At Baylor, there was a super cool event they did called FN 75, which was 75 hours of continuous worship and prayer in like the center of campus. They had this prayer tent that stayed open for 75 hours, and then every night they would have, speakers and worship, which was really, really cool. And the prayer tent was awesome, and different, sororities and fraternities could kind of reserve an hour for their members to come and be together in that time. And it was really cool, really, really cool to see that. And so I think there is movement like that, and there is a lot of passion. I think it also depends, what part of the country you're in. I go to school in Texas, Bible Belt.
Sure.
It's different than other areas of the country. And so I can't speak for everywhere by any means, but I do think there are positive things happening as well, and we want to focus on all the negative and the fear, which there's a lot of right now, and that's real as well. But
it sounds like Baylor is probably not, typical of a lot of college campuses. It's phenomenal that you have that, in a big major university like Baylor, that you have that kind of opportunity. I'm sure there's, mixed things going on there, but it sounds like, and it's been my impression, so correct me, that I do think that there is a lot of energy and a lot of passion in your generation, potentially not controlled. That is, that passion can go in a lot of different directions, and passion can kind of drive things. And in like what you're talking about is this opportunity for that passion to be really steered towards God and faith, but that passion can also be steered, in a lot of different directions without any kind of discipline. Would that be a fair way of saying it?
I think so. I think that there is this passion that is, again, to use the same word, hijacked by kind of our individualistic culture.
Yeah.
A lot of focus on the self and success and productivity, which can all be, it's good to be productive and success. Those are good things to aim for. But I think it just becomes all about the self and how you present yourself and like puffing yourself up.
Right.
Is when we start to get really isolated from each other. Another thing, going back to Niger, is, someone over there explained to me they're a hot climate culture and we're a cold climate culture. So they're more about family and relationships and connections. And over here, we're more about the individual, which is a generalization.
Interesting,
and I would say there's pockets of warm climate over here in different places, and not to completely say everything about our culture is bad, because, the American dream has been amazing, and, hard work are important things. But I think when we lose sight of the goal of that is, to love one another well and to connect with people, is when it go off the rails a little bit. Right.
Yeah. That's great. Any other thoughts on kind of things that stand out, kind of generationally?
Yes. I think those were some of the big things. Just, the self-focus and the self-truth of my generation, but also I think it extends up and just how the world is and our culture right now, all about the self and what I believe. And I think going forward, if we could be a lot more open to respecting each other's ideas, and, because we have different ideas and beliefs and things, but people right now are encouraged to be like, this is my truth, and I don't have to listen to anyone else but myself. And that's.
Yeah, we've it seems like to me we've lost a lot of civility. That we have this dual thing going on, that people are kind of defining their own truth, and ideally the goal would be, if we're going to do that, to respect one another. But in a sense, we're defining our own truth, and that just simply is, putting ourselves at each other's neck. There's less respect than ever, and that just creates a tidal wave of bad things, which seems like we're seeing, in our culture, regardless of what angle you're coming from. And it's a real negative. Maybe it's a consequence of trying to define our own truth. But that the lack of respect for one another is terrible. And it does cross generations.
And it's just a flaw in general of, being human. It's really prevalent right now, but it's been a thing. I think we forget history repeats itself, and we sometimes think these are new problems. And they're not always. They just show up in different forms and better disguised, I guess.
Yeah. That's great. Well, any thoughts for you about this upcoming year, what you're looking forward to?
I'm really excited. I'm just excited to have my feet a little more under me now. Freshman year is a lot to figure out.
Yeah.
I think people don't talk about enough how everything's new and coming at you. But I'm excited I kind of wanted to serve in special needs ministry last year. Serving was such a big part of my high school. I didn't want to lose that my first year of school. And I tried a lot of different areas that just kind of didn't really end up working out. I wanted to serve with special needs at the church I go to in Waco, Harris Creek, where JP's the pastor. He's
It's
awesome.
unbelievable. Yeah.
I'm so grateful I get to go to that church. It's been awesome. But they told me they, at that point in time, didn't need any volunteers in that area, would let me know. And they did, which now they've gotten back to me, and I'm going to start doing that this year.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
I thought about being a Capernaum leader in the spring. Kind of went through the training, but then held off because I want to be all in wherever I am going to go and whatever ministry I am going to get plugged into. And it's a huge time commitment.
Sure.
And just wanted to kind of wait on that. So I'm excited now that I'm going to be able to serve with Harris Creek Special Needs Ministry and kind of weighing other things I want to do. But I definitely don't want to spread myself too thin, which I have a tendency to do. Want to be all in.
A lot of energy.
Want to be all in where I'm going to be. So I'm excited about that. And yeah. Great.
All right. So my one word of encouragement to you would be, you framed yourself at the beginning as indecisive. I think you ought to rename this as a gift of discerning, because it sounds like to me from everything you've talked about, and you've talked about like 5 or 6 different things, that you have a incredible gift for being discerning about the direction. That's a far different thing than being indecisive. And I think that in a sense, that gift of discerning, that gift of listening is, incredibly powerful gift. So I want to encourage you to think about that in a really great way. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks. This has been such a neat conversation. And I think all of us who are listening have a lot to learn from the things that you said. And that's one of the things I believe just so deeply, is we all have a lot to learn from one another, regardless of where we're coming from in life, what age, whatever. We have so much to learn if we would listen. But I love the themes of choosing to serve and finding joy, choosing to serve and then finding joy, which has kind of been repeated in your life so many times. And I think is like a life principle, for so many people. So I think that's a great word, because some of us are probably facing choices of opportunities to serve and are thinking about it first and foremost from the angle of the cost of it. And you're putting a whole new spin on it. So I think it's helpful for me, helpful for so many people. So thanks so much for sharing. Thank you, everybody. I'd love for you to share this episode. It's powerful. It's good for all of us to learn about just giving of ourselves. So thanks. We'll be back for another episode of Space for Life next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.